embittered by his election of 1824 loss, Andrew Jackson is going to basically campaign for the next 4 years, and his campaign is going to look more modern than previous campaigns. He's going to use everything: newspapers, meetings, rallies. I mean, if he had Twitter, he would have used it, and Facebook. But nonetheless, the election of 1828 is an election of personalities, not issues, and Jackson easily wins the Electoral College. In fact, he has almost twice the amount of votes as John Quincy Adams does in 1828. In fact, Jackson sweeps the South and even into every state west of Pennsylvania. And Jackson's policies are going to show, we call it the Jacksonian Democracy, because he's going to try to make the government look more democratic in terms of embodiment of the popular will. And he's going to make himself the friend of the common man. And we see two different political struggles occur under his administration. But nonetheless, it's Jackson that is going to proclaim that his task is to restore the federal government to the ideal of the Jeffersonian republicanism. And one of the ways to do it is to reform the spoils system. To the victor goes the spoils, as they say. And basically what this it would allow the President of the United States would come in and basically fire much of the federal government and federal bureaucrats, and instead place people that think like him into those roles. And so this is known as the spoils system, because not only do you get to become President of the United States and live in the White House and have all the trappings of power, you get to have the government basically bend towards your will. And so when Jackson comes in, he wants to make the government seem a little more reflective of the popular will. So what does he do? He goes and he's going to get rid of office holders, the bureaucrats for the most part. And in fact, he is going to remove 1/5, 20% of the office holders that he inherits. He gets rid of them. The appointees, and his appointees are going to come from the same high status groups as his predecessors, though. But nonetheless, what we're going to see is that loyalty to your party is going to be a reward. Is going to be rewarded by federal appointment. Now, at the beginning, this really does not. It's not really going to affect much. But when we get into the 1880s, particularly, we're going to see that this is actually going to cost the life of a president of the United States because he fails to give somebody a job when it came to his election aftermath. More on that in the U.S. History 2 course. But nonetheless, it's one of the things that Jackson is going to campaign on is the removal of any Native American organized tribes from the east of the Mississippi. They're going to move them from the east of Mississippi to the west of Mississippi. Because where's Jackson's base of support? The south and the west. And that's exactly where these Indians are. And by the time Jackson is president, 125,000 Indians live east of the Mississippi. The Cherokee, the Creeks, the Choctaws, the Chickasaws, and the Seminoles all live on the eastern side of the Mississippi. And so the states are going to pressure the federal government to try to get rid of the Indian populations, as they see them as a threat. And so that's exactly what Jackson is going to do. Jackson, in his first State of the Union address, is going to advise the Indians to move across the Mississippi or submit to state laws. He's going to side, therefore, with the state governments. And in fact, in 1830, he's going to sign into law the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Basically, what this does is it allows the President of the United States about $500,000 to forcibly remove any Indians from the east of Mississippi to the west of Mississippi. In particular, we're going to see the Cherokees of Georgia be moved from Georgia to territory set up for them in Oklahoma. Jackson has to send in the army, but only to round up any Indians refusing to comply with the order. And basically what you're going to start seeing is what's known as the Trail of Tears episode, where about a quarter of the Cherokee Indians that go from Georgia to Oklahoma are going to die along the way. Another way that you could see how he's anti-Indian is going to be his reaction to a Supreme Court case known as Worchester versus Georgia. Georgia is going to try and basically start placing Cherokees under Georgia state law. Under the Constitution, that's not supposed to happen. Indian tribes are supposed to be dealt with as foreign nations, not subject to state or federal law. Well, the state government of Georgia says, nah, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to pass laws that are going to actually affect the Cherokee Indians. And so the Cherokees are going to actually sue the state of Georgia, and it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. And there, one of the last decisions that he will ever make, John Marshall declares that any state law trying to affect a Indian tribe is unconstitutional. Well, the problem is that Jackson is now president of the United States, and in fact he is going to say, John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it. Basically saying that, he can decide whatever he wants, but he has no enforcement ability when it comes to his decisions. It's also during Jackson's time period that we have a rather bizarre episode known as the Peggy Eaton affair. You see, Peggy Eaton was the wife of his Secretary of War, John Eaton. And the problem is going to be is that Peggy Eaton does not come from the same social structures and social institutions that her fellow cabinet wives are part of. And so whenever the cabinet gets together for parties in Washington, D.C., the Eatons are always left out. And so Jackson hears about it, and he starts investigating the matter and finds out that it's his vice president, John Calhoun, and particularly his wife, that's actually instigating the shunning of Peggy and John Eaton. And so Jackson basically tells Calhoun, hey, let's invite the Eatons. They're good people. And Calhoun basically says, no, I'm not going to pressure my wife to invite these people. Calhoun's refusal is basically going to get that famous anger that Jackson has broiled up. And basically what's going to happen is that Jackson, in reaction, is going to fire his entire cabinet. With the exception of Calhoun. Calhoun's his vice president, so he can't fire them. But we start to see a definite break between the two men, to the point that by the time the first term's over, Jackson is going to want to kill him, much less fire him.